Drive safe. Ready to turn left. Turn left. Right, and then turn right. Turn right. Ready to turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Left, and then turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Arrived at your destination. Your route guidance is now finished.
Good evening, everyone. Contact with the Freightliner FLB with the Cummins M11. Uh, Started with Tacoma uh, for use packaging, and what that means that it's going to be a 650-mile ride across Oregon. So, Cummins the most recent, a lot of the lines they done. Well, Anyway, gosh, we better. And let's go to the item that I need it on the fucking, it's fucking on the road. It is a short ride for stuff. So,
Ready to roll.
other than that, let's get going.
Never mind. I'll find a new route. Go straight on. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep right, and then exit right. Exit right. Turn right. Exit right. Go straight on. Go straight on.
including that they may not pay interest prior to liquidation and
I'm Al Letson of Reveal.
This story is going to be about people trying to keep secrets.
True stories that affect your world every week on Reveal.
Was there any reason why you didn't want to tell us the truth?
We didn't lie, we just withheld information.
Because there's always more to the story on Reveal.
Reveal, Saturdays at 2 p.m. on News 88.7.
This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. I'm Tiffany Taylor. 85 degrees at the University of Houston with some light rain, 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms through the rest of the evening. Monday, we have a high of 93, low of 78, and a potential for a break in the rain. I-45 northbound before the 610 North Loop. That accident has been cleared. East Tex Freeway northbound at Will Clayton. There's an accident, right shoulder and the right lane.
Wait, you're listening.
Okay.
All right.
You're listening to Radio Lab.
Radio
From
WNYC.
See?
Yeah.
Get ready to turn left.
What's another word for a male frog that has some children?
Daddy walk.
Okay, sorry. I feel cash. I already feel like we're at a sleepover
left.
instead of like at an official recording.
Hey, I'm Lulu.
I'm Latif.
This is Radio Lab.
And this week, we brought in a third host, as if there weren't enough of us. A host we are quite a big fan of. Allie, your show is awesome.
It's so great.
Her name is Allie Ward. We brought her in because we wanted her to tell you about her podcast.
So Ologies is a comedy-ish science podcast where we explore a different ology every episode. So it might be geology one week and then philematology the next, which is the study of kissing. So
Allie has taken on so many ologies.
Testudinology, which comes from the Latin testudo for tortoise.
Enigmatology.
hagfish.
Hagfishology.
Would it be raccoonology or would it be
No. Meteorology. Apiariology.
Chickenology.
Melanology.
Quantum ontology.
Chronobiology.
Carnivorous phytobiology. Flesh-eating plants.
Your urology episode was one of my favorites. And I did not think I would, I very reluctantly clicked on that.
Thank you.
And we brought Allie on because her show is kind of like a kindred spirit to our show, but also it's very different at the same time. Like, for our show, we talk to a bunch of scientists, but it's usually in the context of a story or a big idea we're interested in, and then we try to make it all add up to something. Allie does not do that part. She just will be like, oh, this scientist is interesting, and then they will sit down and they will just go to town. And actually, one of the things I love about your show is like your What Matters is totally different than our What Matters. Like, what does it matter when it's a random thing that it seems like maybe only this one scientist you're talking to cares about?
I love this question and I completely get it. So here's the thing. Science is everywhere. Science is in how you steam broccoli. Science is in how you park your car. Science is in who you fall in love with. Science is why you sweat when you get a text message that freaks you out. Like, it's not just about diagrams and textbooks. And I think it's also interesting that a lot of people who are not scientists think that scientists are jerks and pedantic and are there with like a huge book of facts to tell them that they're wrong about things. And I wanted to show that like scientists are curious little weirdos who found their niche in whatever made them passionate, and they make mistakes and they have hypotheses that end up being wrong, and they're figuring it out too. And so humanizing scientists, I feel like, galvanizes people to care a little bit more every time they see a research paper and they think, I wonder why this person studied this, or I wonder how long it took to get this published. And so the civic duties that we have to protect things and care about things become easier for people when they have a little bit more context.
But like, okay, so like how do you know how to that people will stay with you for all of these, for your, to go damn, like how far they'll follow you before they'll just be like, Allie just totally lost it. Like this is
Lost the plot.
Like, yeah, lost the plot.
Like a lightning bug kind of darting around and just following the light.
So for the rest of this episode of our show, we're going to follow Allie into an episode of her show as she follows the light, bouncing around like a little lightning bug like she does, into the dark.
Oh, scotohylology. Scoto means dark, hylology means matter.
We're going to play her episode on dark matter for you.
That was a rare one where I worked with the ologist to be like, there needs to be a word for this. How do you feel about this? And he loved it.
You coined a term?
We coined it.
It's one of the very few conversations I've heard that actually make dark matter make sense to me.
And even feel like it matters.
Yeah. So we're going to turn it over now to Allie with UC Riverside theoretical particle physicist and dark matter expert, Flip Tornado.
And just a quick heads up, the lovely Allie Ward is not afraid to dirty her tongue. That's not an expression. She's not afraid to swear. So there are a few swear words ahead. Here we go.
Did you set out to become a theoretical physicist?
How does one I feel like is the hardest field possible?
Go straight on.
All right, here is my origin story. I wanted to be an author.
Really?
I had no idea why, but I was very passionate about writing, the idea that one could have a voice. And so growing up, I was a huge fan of LeVar Burton's because of Reading Rainbow.
Oh, love. Yes.
Reading Rainbow, amazing.
But you don't have to take my word for it.
So I would watch Reading Rainbow, and at some point in the back of my mind, I realized this person who does Reading Rainbow is also on this TV show, Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And in high school, I'd started watching Star Trek a little bit. It was still on at the time. I picked up the book, The Physics of Star Trek by Lawrence Krauss. And this was a really fun ride because it was the first time I thought about a scientific subject as something where there are open questions, and these open questions are fun and creative and exciting. And any time that I lost track of it being exciting, I just watch LeVar Burton as Geordi LaForge, as the chief engineer.
I know it well. Oh my gosh. My sister and I used to watch She's really
it was the best.
Yeah. We can't change the gravitational constant of the universe, but if we wrap a low-level warp field around that moon, we could reduce its gravitational constant. Make it lighter so we can push it.
So I think that's what got me into this idea that, hey, these black holes in the show, these are real. We should understand these things. There are fundamental questions that are not only abstract and things that you find in textbooks, but they're fun ideas. And it was the creative spark that was really exciting, that someone could write a science fiction piece about these actual things. And that's what got me going with physics.
Do you write still at all?
I was never a great writer, and you can ask my collaborators that my paper writing is slow and tortuous. But I would like to eventually write something as a popular book.
Oh yeah, I feel like that is in your future. But when it comes to matter and dark matter, I mean, slow it way down for baby brains like mine. But from what I understand, and the first time I ever read this was like, okay, all of the matter that we can see and touch and feel and everything makes up about 15%.
Yeah, depending on how you count.
So everything that you can see, touch, and smell, that's 5% of the universe's mass and energy. There's another 95% of pure mystery.
So then what the is everything else?
That is,
what is it?
That is this is the mind-blowing thing. We've known about dark matter indirectly for over 100 years. Like, there's been evidence for this for over 100 years. And I think it hasn't been until fairly recently that this has come to the forefront of, we really ought to figure out what this stuff is. Because, as you said, we spend all of our lives learning science, art, history. Everything you learn from a textbook is basically about that really tiny slice of visible normal matter and the history of that normal matter in this universe, in this world, in our culture. But it turns out for every, let's see, what's the fraction? I think if you look at the amount of energy, so energy is a good measure for stuff, 25% of the universe is made of dark matter, and only 5% is made of so there's 5 times more dark matter than ordinary stuff. And in fact, it's so much more that we look at our galaxy, we think our galaxy is huge. Our galaxy is almost everything we'd possibly care about. Our galaxy is only here because it is swimming in an ocean of dark matter that provides a gravitational pull to keep the galaxy there. Like the galaxy formed because there was dark matter. So where we are right now with scotohylology, is that what we're doing?
Yes, nailed it.
This is the fish scientists discovering for the first time that there's this thing, water, that we're swimming through. We should figure out what this water is.
Wow. And now the other, let's say, is the other 70% dark energy?
Good, yeah. So that is a great, I was both hoping and not hoping that you would bring that up. Right, so 25% dark matter, 5% ordinary matter, that doesn't add up to 100%. And so the rest is indeed dark energy. And I'm excited that I have no idea what dark matter is. I mean, there are great things to do in that field. I have no idea what it is. Dark energy.
Of course, very much so. Especially this topic, there's going to be a lot of boggling, trust me. So, what? I mean, okay, so about 100 years ago, was that when we realized, I say we, the royal we here, like that something is not adding up?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
When did we realize that?
I think this was about 100 years ago. The first astronomical observations were, and this is what was really, really tricky, the origins of scotohylology were really in astronomy. And people would look at galaxies and look at how fast stars were moving in those galaxies. And just using ordinary, non-fancy Newtonian physics, the type of physics that students grown over in high school, they figured out that these stars moving around these galaxies were going a little bit too fast. It's as if there was they had accounted for just by counting stars. And I'm going to do a great disservice to my astronomer colleagues, but for the most part, the astronomy field said, that's curious. For I don't know, maybe 50 years, 60 years. Because there are lots of curiosities in astronomy.
Right.
Over the next 100 years, we had more and more mounting evidence that this additional gravity, which in the 1920s, who cares if you just didn't happen to count all the stars correctly? But now there's more and more evidence coming from more and more sophisticated measurements that not only is there more stuff, but that stuff cannot be the stuff that we're made of.
So there is stuff all around us, out massing us and out energying us, maybe by a factor of 20. But we can't see it, and we don't understand it. So this whole time, we thought that we were a cookies and cream milkshake. We're just the Oreo bits, and we're surrounded by an invisible milkshake that can seep through us. We don't know what it is or what it does. So dark matter, it doesn't interact with light or electromagnetic forces, which is why we can't see or feel it. So why do we know it's there? Fritz Zwicky first coined the term dark matter in 1933, more on him later, but it wasn't until this astronomer named Vera Rubin crunched some numbers and hypothesized that dark matter exerts gravity. And without that gravity, galaxies would just fly apart and scatter if it all just depended on the normal matter or baryonic matter, which is the atomic stuff that we know of, like protons and neutrons and electrons. So when did she figure that out? Oh, just in 1978. We just found this out a split second ago in the universal timeline. Get this, so Dr. Vera Rubin, she did her calculations at this observatory that didn't even have women's restrooms. There were no ladies' rooms at the observatory. She had to cut up a silhouette of a dress and paste it on one of the men's rooms. And then, when she was done crafting, then she pioneered some giant theories about the existence of the universe. And she died in 2016. She was never awarded the Nobel Prize, and they unfortunately do not hand those out posthumously, which is a bummer. But you can name your dog Vera or your cat Rubin and remember Vera Rubin that way. But anyway, dark matter, it's something else.
It cannot be the stuff that we're used to from chemistry. And then the fundamental particle physicists, the elementary particle physicists realized we've been spending the past 5 decades trying to categorize the elementary particles of nature. We're trying to have the most fundamental periodic table. And you're telling me that there is something that we're missing and that we definitely have to put on here? Wow. And this became a big thing, if you'll permit me an aside.
Yes, I was hoping you'd say that.
But this is the moral history. This is the way that we're going to remember it.
Okay.
In the 80s and 90s, there was one big hot question in particle physics. And that question had to do with the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson, that in 2013 won the Nobel Prize for its discovery. Big deal. Big deal.
And now that's sometimes wrongly called the God particle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the quote-unquote God particle.
Right.
And if you asked physicists in my generation, its discovery was more like the Stapling particle, where we had to really do some soul searching. Because in the 80s and 90s, we had realized there's probably a Higgs. If there's not a Higgs, things get way more interesting. But if there's a Higgs, something isn't quite right in the theory. Because for all the reasons that we needed to have the Higgs, if the Higgs had the mass and the properties that we needed it to have, somehow it just didn't seem right. It was far lighter in mass than it really ought to have been. So we now know it weighed about 125 times the mass of a proton, which is pretty honking for a fundamental particle. And our prediction, naively, if I gave that calculation to a first-year grad student, they'd say, it's probably way heavier than that. It's like balancing a pencil on its tip. The quantum corrections to its mass would make the Higgs heavier than it actually is.
And just some very brief background on this. So Higgs particles make up the Higgs field, which is this big cloud of bosons or particles. So matter started out zipping around like photons, just unencumbered by mass. But interaction with the Higgs field is what makes matter interact with gravity and have that mass be gravitationally attracted to each other. But Higgs bosons, very hard to find. You have to get like a large hadron collider, say, maybe 27 kilometers under Geneva, and then you got to race protons at each other, you got to explode them, and then you got to measure what's left, aka a decay signature. And if you're looking through all those pieces and you have pieces and parts for what could have been a Higgs boson that existed for a fraction of a millisecond, then that's almost proof. But for a long time, this possibility of the Higgs particle had vexed science for years. One leading scientist wanted to call it the goddamn particle, but his book publisher was like, let's go softer, and naively made the facepalm modification to just call it the God particle, which has been making physicists cringe for decades now. But yes, essentially, things just didn't add up.
And so this was a huge puzzle. It's analogous to having an ice cube sitting in an oven, and you turn the oven on, and the ice cube's still there.
Wow.
So we called this the hierarchy problem, and for people like me, we write it with a capital H when we write our academic papers. It was a big deal. It seemed to be the reason why our theory of particle physics could not be complete.
So prior to 2013, they knew something wasn't quite right.
Go straight on.
So we had these great exotic theories. They had funny names: supersymmetry, extra dimensions, compositeness. You know, maybe the electron and its cousins are not fundamental, but are actually made of smaller things.
Oh wow!
So this was the heyday in the 90s of doing particle physics, and right around that time, as we were developing these really awesome theories, people realized, hey, in order for this theory to work, meaning in order for protons not to decay too quickly, in order for the universe to actually look like the way it does, we need to tweak it a little bit, and one output is we get these new particles that stick around. They don't decay. They're just around. That's kind of weird. And I imagine there's some physicist, particle physicist, sitting in his office saying this, and an astronomer walks by and says, "You have particles just sitting around, contributing mass? Have you heard about this anomaly that we have? There's more mass in the galaxies." And so particle physicists we're kind of smug. Just said, "Oh, yeah, okay, good. I have discovered what your dark matter ought to be. You, in 15 years, when we turn on this collider, we're going to discover what this particle is. We'll measure how heavy it is, and I will tell you exactly what's in these galaxies that you've been looking at for the past 100 years. Those And so particle physicists didn't even care about the dark matter because that was the output of this elegant theory that solved the capital H hierarchy problem.
And just a side note, so the capital S standard, capital M model of particle physics involves this uniform framework for understanding electromagnetic and weak and strong interactions. And the hierarchy problem is the difference between the way a weak force, which is a force that allows protons to become neutrons and then back and forth, vice versa. So that weak force is actually not weak at all. It's 10 to the 24th times stronger than gravity, but only at really short distances. So this was the big, strong, weak elephant in physics room.
Grad student, and the year that I graduated was 2013. I had written some papers on extra dimensions and all of these exotic new things that we would predict that we would see. And by the time that I turned in my thesis, it was pretty clear that none of those things would be discovered. We had discovered the most basic, most boring version of the Higgs boson, and none of the things that we predicted for the overarching theory that would explain why it was there. And then we got stuck.
Oh.
Bummer. What a mind bender, huh?
And I think this is where there's been a bit of a renaissance in the theory of dark matter. Because on the one hand, the smug particle theorists like me, who would assume that of course dark matter is this thing, all of our best theories predict this thing, well, that's out the window. But dark matter is still out there. And meanwhile, actually all of these theories that we spent our time building and cutting our teeth understanding, maybe the simplest versions of those guys are out the window too. So what are we working on? So several of us are still working on understanding the Higgs, but armed with all of these new fancy techniques for building theories, several of us went on to think about dark matter, because now we can look at this problem with fresh eyes, without the prejudice of, well, there's this more important problem that has this more important solution, and this is just a byproduct of that thing. Now we've been thinking more open-ended about what dark matter could be, not just what we expect it to be.
More on dark matter from Flip Tornado after a quick break.
Radiolab is supported by Progressive Insurance. 4 walls and 4 tires protected. Customers can customize their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto today. More at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE.
From Austin to Houston, Dallas to San Antonio, Marfa, El Paso, and in bureaus across the Lone Star State, reporters are pulling together the stories and the voices of people making news right now, right here in Texas. I'm David Brown, inviting you to join us for a complete view of the day's events when it's Texas Standard Time.
The Texas Standard, weekdays at 10 a.m. on News 88.7.
Matt Harrod here, your morning anchor on News 88.7. I've had the privilege of telling our city's most powerful stories on your drive to work or wherever you're off to start your day. Whether it's news our reporters have dug up, breaking news, a developing story, or necessary weather information, my goal every morning is to give you what you need to know. Houston Public Media is community funded. Your contributions enable us to deliver in-depth reporting on matters that impact our city, and we sincerely appreciate your support.
Support comes from Comcast Business. From Main Street to Wall Street, Comcast Business provides business solutions ranging from cybersecurity solutions to rapid-fire partnerships. Restrictions apply. Support comes from MD Anderson Cancer Center, where a single blood donation at MD Anderson Cancer Center can help make a life-saving difference for cancer patients. Information on donating blood, appointments, and more at mdandersongiveblood.com.
Radiolab. We are back with Allie Ward on scotopilology,
aka the study of dark matter,
with theoretical particle physicist Flip Tornado. Here's Allie.
What about the name dark matter and dark energy? Because it's invisible at best, right?
Absolutely.
Who decided that it would be called dark? Who decided that it would have a spooky name?
That is a great question. I think it was Zwicky, who was a famously cantankerous physicist in the early part of the 20th century.
So yes, this was 1933 with Caltech's Fritz Zwicky. And when you hear the words famously cantankerous, I know you want the story time. And among a lot of different legends and slander and feuds and jealousy and what sounds like maybe a touch of old-timey verbal abuse, If his enemy stories were to be believed, Zwicky would allegedly call his colleagues scatterbrains and spherical bastards. Spherical because, quote, they are bastards. Every way I look at them. Oh, messy. I love it. But a 2008 article in Discover magazine features testimony from Zwicky's daughter, Barbarina, that Dr. Fritz was just so brilliant that he had a lot of haters. But he was the one
who coined the term dark matter. And what he meant was that it doesn't interact with light.
Ah.
Yeah, so usually we think things that are dark don't interact with light. But actually, probably there's some junior high student out there who'll say, no, things that are dark absorb light. They're actually maximally interacting with light. If you're an astronomer, dark means you don't see any photons from it. So I think that's why they use the word dark. And to the best of my knowledge, I think dark energy, which was discovered a little bit later, as a big question mark. They latched on to the branding that we developed. And they used the word dark to mean, just like dark matter, we don't know what this is. But at least dark matter, we get the idea that this was stuff. These were particles. I'm 99.9% sure dark matter is at least one particle. Dark energy definitely behaves different, and it's a much weirder thing.
Do you drive around in traffic and think about this stuff? Like, can you ever escape theorizing about this?
Oh, that is a great question. I think the imposter syndrome in me said, yeah, I escaped it way too much. But traffic in LA, as you know, is not a great place to have happy thoughts. But I often find myself thinking about physics in the swimming pool. Really? And so, for example, there's this idea of we are fish in an ocean of dark matter. And that was something that I was thinking about while swimming. And I guess being in a mathematical discipline, you're sharpening your equipment, like having the finest equipment is really having a clear mind. And I can sit at my desk and I can do a calculation, I can write a paper, but the creative spark is something that usually happens outside of those environments. So walking around or having tea on my patio, that's where the magic happens. Why would you need this? Because we all end up being specialists in, it's not even just our particular subfield, but the particular language that we use to understand the mathematics, the particular analogies that we write, the particular intuition that we develop, that the real sparks happen when you bring us into the same place. You give us a chalkboard, you remove every other distraction, and you let us ask each other, so what are you working on? Oh, and how do you think about that? And then everything happens. It's, I've been thinking about this other thing, and the language that I use is this, and here's how I do this calculation. And that's how new ideas come about. And oftentimes you can spend 2 weeks ideas, having Zoom calls every once in a while. It's kind of the momentum builder of our field.
And be honest with me, without having to name names, how many astrophysicists out there think that dark matter might be ghosts? What if dark matter is ghosts? What if dark energy is ghosts? What if it's all ghosts? What if we're swimming in ghosts?
There is a famous quote from Nima Arkani Hamed before the LHC turned on, and the quote was something along the lines of, we might turn it on and dragons might pop out. We have no idea what's going to happen.
So in a March 2008 New York Times article, this particle theorist who was at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton told the paper that there was some probability of almost anything happening, even a minuscule chance that, quote, the Large Hadron Collider might make dragons that might eat us up. Maybe he was just ahead of the curve in predicting the 2011 premiere of Game of Thrones. But either way, people were right and pumped.
And that kind of encapsulated a lot of the excitement. Something much more exciting than particles. And there are theories where the dark matter, plural, could form dark atoms. Just like you have protons and electrons, maybe something like a dark proton and a dark electron that we can't see, but they can see each other. And those form dark atoms. And then it's not hard to imagine, well, those dark atoms could have dark chemistry, that dark chemistry could form dark life, that dark life could, maybe this entire sentient civilization living in our dark matter. 5 times more of them than there is us, we are the ghosts. We are the weird thing.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You're trying to make sense of dark matter using a field of math that applies to everything else. Is there a possibility that there's a dark math? That there's just a completely different way of trying to quantify it?
Boy, okay. That is one perhaps for the philosophy department. And I say that very carefully because I think usually when a physicist says that's for the philosophy department, that's probably condescending. That's probably dismissive. That's how we say, I don't want to think about that. The assumption is math is logical rigor. And so that just has to be true. And I don't even know how to think about a different reality, a different universe that has different laws of math. I can imagine a different universe where the fundamental constants are a little bit different. Maybe there are more particles, fewer particles. But I don't know how to think about one where math is different.
Is there a myth that you would love to bust about dark matter? Like, what is one thing that the public thinks they know about it that they don't, other than that it's ghosts?
Oh, that's great. That is a great question. I'll start with a basic one. It's not antimatter.
Okay.
It's not antimatter. It's probably also not black holes.
Okay.
So these are the other two like exotic things that you learn from Star Trek.
Yeah.
So it's not antimatter because it's swimming in the sea of dark matter. Dark matter or antimatter, it would keep matter and producing light. So the fact that I was going to say we're on the low stake in the universe, but really the fact that our galaxy is just being burned up by the antimatter means dark matter is not. Until fairly recently, we would say it's not black holes because black holes are a totally different thing. But there have been some thoughts recently that there might be little tiny black holes that were formed in the universe that would behave like dark matter.
How tiny are we talking?
That's a good. There's a range of sizes, but the story of little black holes is funny. For a long time, people were worried that turning on the LHC would produce lots of little black holes that would eat the Earth.
Sounds like fun.
But we were pretty sure that little black holes evaporated and would be relatively harmless. Little black holes are really harmless.
And do you think that those could be just on Earth in just little...
I would bet no, but it is a theoretical possibility. It's attached to a whole bunch of other weird things. I think to make it work out gravitationally, you need to have extra dimensions, you need a few extra dimensions. But it was a fun thing to think about 10 years ago.
Do you think that dark matter could be extra dimensions?
That is a great question. That is what I spent my summer vacation thinking about. So extra dimensions are a really funny quirk in the history of theoretical physics. I think the modern way of thinking about this is the people who work on extra dimensions don't necessarily literally believe in, if I could just step in the right way, I'm going to be in some parallel universe. But in the mathematics, one realizes that if I can write a theory in 3 dimensions of space plus 1 dimension of time, I could write a theory in 4 dimensions of space plus 1 dimension of time, or in 5 dimensions of space in 1 dimension of time. No problem, right? It's another number that you add onto your mathematical expressions. And so it was easy to play with. And in the 1990s, one of the huge revolutions in theoretical physics was this observation that particular types of theories with extra dimensions end up giving mathematically equivalent predictions when you ask the right question to a type of quantum theory that is really hard to calculate. This is something called a duality in physics, and it meant that I could calculate something in my wonky theory of extra dimensions, and that calculation would actually mean something in an ordinary meaning 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, that is highly quantum mechanical, but a perfectly plausible theory. And it was a type of theory that we really didn't know how to deal with until we had tools like this.
Tools like the Large Hadron Collider.
And so one of the fun things to play with is we have this really powerful machine to make predictions where we couldn't make predictions 20 years ago. Maybe we can describe cool theories of dark matter that one could explain why we haven't discovered dark matter. and two, could motivate
Keep left.
interesting different
And then
searches.
turn left.
Because this is where we are right now. We need to figure out what is the best way to
Turn left.
test this dark matter.
It better happen in my lifetime.
For me, this is a difference between dark matter and dark energy. Both of them are things we have no idea what they are.
ready.
I certainly have no idea what they are. Dark matter, we have an experimental program, and we know enough about it that I have faith that we have a sporting chance that we will learn something deep about dark matter in my lifetime. Dark energy, I'm not sure if we'll learn anything about it in the history of humanity.
Okay, so forget about dark energy. Dark matter, more on that coming after the break.
Radiolab is supported by BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public.
PBS NewsHour.
Now more than ever, you need news you can trust.
PBS NewsHour.
Unbiased, in-depth news that delivers substance over sensationalism.
PBS NewsHour.
Cutting through the noise with news that matters. World-class journalism that brings unrivaled national and global perspective home to you.
PBS NewsHour.
Elections, conflict, climate. Trust a news source that provides fair, thoughtful coverage of the events that impact our lives.
PBS NewsHour. Weeknights at 6 on Houston Public Media TV8. In addition to bringing you News 88.7, Houston Public Media also broadcasts PBS to all of Greater Houston. Want to watch shows like All Creatures Great and Small, Grantchester, or Masterpiece? What about Broadway performances or Austin City Limits? Get exclusive streaming access to over 4,000 PBS shows and films with Houston PBS Passport. For as little as $5 a month, you can stream all these and more from the PBS video app. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/passport.
Behold the shepherd tone.
The Tinkerbell effect.
Hillbilly humanism.
The Overton window.
Hyperobjects. The Bill Gates problem.
The Zuckerberg delusion.
Times are changing, and so is our vocabulary.
Apodophobia.
The public trust our social. The Let all be your guide as we explore the future together.
On the media, Saturdays at 5 p.m. on News 88.7.
Welcome here. You're listening to Radio Lab. Today we've been showcasing one of our favorite science podcasts out there, Ologies with Allie Ward. Today she's talking scotohomology, which I also never heard of. The study of dark matter, theoretical physicist.
Can I ask you questions from listeners? Oh, okay. We got a lot of... Who can blame them? Okay. We'll talk. First time
Let's
question
find
asker,
a new
also
route.
known as P-Run. Is dark matter the absence of matter or something measurable? We now know it's something measurable, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So dark matter, this is one of the great things where it's fairly ordinary. It is a thing, it is stuff, it is matter.
Mm-hmm. It's something.
That was also asked by patrons Jessica Smith, Ruby Chan Frey, On Figlor, Ed Maitsevak, Jackie, and first-time question askers Lucas Waterbody and Sam Phillips. So let's dip in to the next question.
Leah E. Anderson, first-time question asker, asked, what is a hidden valley? It says CERN mentions it on their webpage about dark matter. Is there a potentially parallel universe occupying the same space that we inhabit? What is Hidden Valley? It is not a side of Ranch, I'm guessing.
That is a great question. So hidden valleys are a class of theories that were developed by Matt Stradler and Catherine Zurich in the mid-2000s, I believe. And they are actually related to some of the extra-dimensional signatures that I mentioned earlier. It's really funny that the listener asked that question. I was reading the Hidden Valley paper recently for some research that I'm working on. We were looking forward to the LHC. We all had these favorite theories, supersymmetry, extra dimensions, and the Hidden Valley authors were thinking about more exotic things that could come through at the LHC. We all had this idea that you turn it like this. You turn it on, you just see all the new particles. It's easy. But what if it's also hidden valleys were a type of theory other physicists how weird and how
And you know, we mentioned a little bit about dimensions, but a few folks, including Lisa Messier, wanted to know says, sorry if this one is a little too sci-fi-y. No need to apologize for that here.
Absolutely.
If you consider the theory of multiple universes, could another universe be made entirely of dark matter, dark energy? But you mentioned dimensions, but what's the difference between multiverses and different dimensions? Are they used interchangeably?
Good. Okay. It becomes a question of where do we start agreeing on what is a universe? So if we assume a universe is some self-consistent, perhaps imaginary, everything.
Turn right.
So a universe has some number of dimensions of space and time. If there's more than one time dimension, I have no idea how to make sense of it. It has some kind of governing physical theory. So there's some equation telling you what the particles are, how they move. Yeah, that's a good approximation for what I think a universe is.
Okay.
So a multiverse would be a collection of different universes that really should not interact.
Okay.
So whether or not the multiverse is real is such a weird question. Not because if it is real, something exotic is going to happen, but if a multiverse is real, by definition, those other universes can traverse them, can explore them, but the idea is they would have very different ramifications. If I said that our universe, if you characterize the universe by some list of numbers, the mass of the electron, the strength of the electric coupling, the strength of gravity, there's some list of numbers. You just push them into your theory. A different universe would be one with different numbers. And what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done for us is has given us this idea that if there's a multiverse, then you can go between them and harvest whatever Infinity Stones and bring them back. But that's not quite how it works.
What about Everything Everywhere All at Once? Have you seen that?
I love that movie.
Across the multiverse, I've seen thousands of Evelyns.
That's not how that works.
One of my favorite students in my particle physics class last term brought that up in class. They said, can we talk about this afterwards?
You love it as a work of fiction.
I love it as a work of fiction, yes.
And just a side note, the Academy Awards are on March 12th, 2023. And those who listen to this after that date will know if that film won any Oscars. Oh, speaking of.
MB wants to know time travel. Yes, no, maybe?
Ooh. We are definitely traveling in time.
Right now we are.
We are definitely traveling in time. And that by itself is kind of weird because we know that if you're moving faster, the way you perceive time is different. So ordinary traveling through time in the forward direction is already pretty exotic, if you ask me. I don't think any more exotic Doctor Who level time travel is possible. Certainly not within our existing theories, but I'll be fully honest, part of that is because our existing theories put in by hand that causality is really important. And causality is this idea that you cannot have grandfather paradoxes. You go back in time and you kill your grandfather.
Yeah. Also, what are these grandpas doing? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. What beef do you have? I mean, that's a big jump for a scientific experiment.
Yeah. Everyone's grandpa is such a. Maria wants to know, what would the universe look like if there was no dark matter, and what would happen if it suddenly disappeared?
Great question. Okay, so let's start with if there were no dark matter.
Okay.
If there were no dark matter, there wouldn't be us.
I'm not here.
I think a good benchmark is the quantum fluctuations of dark matter in the early universe. So the universe was hot, small, things were blipping in and out of existence. And that overdensity of stuff, of dark stuff, would gravitate and pull more dark stuff in, and that would be what we call a dark matter halo. The big dark matter halos were so strong gravitationally, they're so massive, that they would bring in the little tiny specks of dust of ordinary matter. And slowly, those little specks of dust would collect and turn into our galaxy. So if there were no dark matter, we wouldn't have the collection of ordinary stuff that became our galaxy. And we wouldn't need to wonder about it.
So whatever dark matter is, it's helped collect all the atoms and scattered ingredients to make us. And now, here we are. Breathing, living, loving and crying, having good days, eating cheese for dinner and farting into pajamas, watching TikToks of earwax removal. It's a beautiful life. Dark matter, thank you. Never leave, probably.
If all the dark matter suddenly disappeared, that's a good question. I'm actually not quite sure what would happen. I have not done the calculation to figure out if our galaxy would stay here, or if maybe the smaller galaxies around us would, what's the word?
Kind of scatter, almost if you were to whip something around and just
exactly,
like a merry-go-round, just like scatter off of it, right?
Yeah, so in fact, it would be very similar to the question that I think we asked a lot of our freshman students. If the sun disappeared, what would happen to the solar system? Eventually, everything would just fly away because the gravitational pull that was holding them together would be gone.
So mass attracts mass, and that is why smaller planets have weaker gravitational forces, and why you can hop like a bunny on our tiny moon if you can manage to get a ride there. And a few patrons asked this next one, such as Annika's cat Arya, Earl of Gramilkin, Elder Zamora, and
Theodore Vissian. Is there anti-dark matter to correspond to antimatter?
I love that question. The answer is almost certainly yes. And it's almost certainly yes because the laws of physics that we understand seem to imply that everything has an antiparticle, with the caveat that sometimes they are their own antiparticle. Ooh. So photons are their own antiparticle. There's no antiphoton.
Yeah.
So dark matter exists. It's a particle. You can define a mathematical operation that turns dark matter into anti-dark matter. And it is an open question whether the anti-dark matter is the same as dark matter. And I'll mention one last thing. It's the same question is true for neutrinos. Neutrinos are the other invisible particle. And we do not know still whether or not neutrinos are their own antimatter.
So a neutrino is just the littlest, really darling little particle with no charge. It's nearly massless. It's so light, and they're everywhere in the universe. They originate from exploding stars and from the nuclear fusion in the sun, and there's millions of them that just mosey almost at light speed right through your dang body every day. Two physicists discovered them in the 1950s. They won the Nobel Prize in Physics. 40 years later, which I'm sorry, it seems like a long lag time. And I don't feel bad saying that because I know I'll never be up for a Nobel Prize in Physics.
The paper about neutrinos said you could explain this thing if there were some really weakly interacting, nearly massless particle. But I'm sorry to have predicted a particle that has no chance of ever being detected.
I love that there's like a...
Yeah, it's like,
so sorry.
This is not good science. but we found it.
Ah, that's rad.
Chief! We got him! We found him!
Jackie wants to know, what would happen if I had 10 pounds of dark matter in my hand? And then some other folks asked, Jackie also asked, how much dark matter is in the room right now? How much dark matter is in us?
All right, so we actually know this.
Oh, okay.
I only know the rule of thumb that where we're sitting in our galaxy, in your coffee mug, about 1 gram of dark matter. So you can do the unit conversion for how much dark matter is in the room, but it's a pretty normal scale thing.
Yeah.
Here's the caveat. So if I tell you you have 1 gram of dark matter, you don't know if that's one particle that weighs 1 gram, or 1,000 particles that each weigh 1 milligram, or anything in between, right? So we don't know the number density of dark matter, we know the mass density.
And we can't measure that on a scale that's actually measuring grams because that is using gravity.
Absolutely.
Right? So it would be a completely different scale to measure that.
This is something that we have inferred from, not from anything terrestrial, but from the motion of stars in our galaxy.
Oh, that's absolutely nuts. I mean, does it change the way you live your life at all, knowing that you're surrounded in such mystery? Do you just like ever take more chances, or just say like, screw it, I'm gonna live for today, or get the whipped cream on the ice blended, like why not?
So last year we have a science book club, and last year we read Katie Mack's book, The End of Everything.
Yes.
And there was definitely a week where I thought, it doesn't matter how bad things are, the universe is going to end eventually.
I was reading that before bed the other night, and I was like, this is a little depressing, but oddly liberating.
Exactly.
It's a great book.
So we did a 2-part cosmology episode a few years back with Dr. Katie Mack, which of course I'm going to link in the show notes. And I highly urge you to pick up her since released book, the end of everything, astrophysically speaking. It's really funny and informative. It's terrifying. It's comforting all at once. I'm going to link it on my website.
Earl of Gramilcan wants to know, what is the best music to listen to while researching dark matter?
All right, that is a great question.
Do you need classical music or like thrash metal?
I'm looking over at my laptop because I have a 90s indies rock channel playing on YouTube Music. And this is just a life pro tip for anyone doing something mathematical.
Turn left.
You want to have background music so you're not just hearing the echoes of your room. You want something with no vocals, and for the added bonus, there's a different webpage for generating cafe sounds. So I make myself a hot tea and I have all the audio.
It's genius. I love it. And like life tips from an astrophysicist is something that I would definitely tune into like at any point.
Technically, I'm not an astrophysicist. So
Are you a theoretical physicist?
Particle physicist.
Now, what's the difference between an astrophysicist and a theoretical? And pardon me, because this is just me learning. But what is the difference between the two?
So, if you're my department chair,
yes,
an astrophysicist can get money from NASA, and a theoretical particle physicist gets money from the National Science Foundation. But the two fields are actually blended. I collaborate with theoretical astrophysicists on dark matter. There are topics where you really can't distinguish. But the tools of the trade for a particle physicist are really quantum field theory and an entire tradition of how we think about fundamental particles. Astrophysicists have a slightly different toolkit that patches on observational astronomy and cosmology and a different scale of what are the interesting problems.
I thought Lucas Waterbody had a great question. I know we can't observe it, but after working on it for years, you must get some weird imaginary images in your head when you think about it. What does dark matter look like in your head?
Ooh, yeah, okay. So I think the honest answer is I have pictures, but the pictures are never of the dark matter. The pictures are of my toolkit for understanding dark matter. Mm-hmm. So if I'm thinking about dark matter as something that could be described with extra dimensions. And I say it very carefully because I'm not saying there are extra dimensions. I'm saying mathematically, I can do a calculation in the extra dimension and it means something. Then I think about literally extra dimension, and I have tons of these pictures I draw with my grad students about what does the wave function look like? Does it ripple? What does it look like at the boundary? Does it interact with other things? Is it wiggly? Is it exponentially increasing or exponentially decreasing? But that's a picture which is not the same thing as a picture of the invisible quantum field, which is not really a tangible thing, but it's a picture that I hold on to. The other thing are Feynman diagrams, which are these really cute tinker toy looking things that particle physicists use to describe quantum scattering, so any process. They're actually shorthand for mathematics, but it's a way of engaging the visual part of your brain to make sense of something which is otherwise pages of calculation.
Yeah, and otherwise so abstract.
So we think in analogies. Mm-hmm. That's the punchline.
It's so interesting to think of a theoretical physicist also thinking in like almost tinker toys to try to get a handle on dimensionality or something. I'll ask one more listener question. Emma Rose wants to know, does dark matter have a sound?
Oh gosh, there are so many great answers to that question. One of my colleagues, Yushin Sai at Notre Dame, he had a great paper about something called dark acoustic oscillations, which is literally answering that question. It's in the word. Acoustic oscillations are about sound waves in the early universe. So dark matter, which were particles forming these halos, when there's a shock to the halo, they form sound waves. Sound ripples in the dark matter substrate. So they literally form sounds. It's both exciting and cool, but completely mundane, right? Sounds traveling on which sounds traveling through wood. It's literally the same kind of sound.
But it's going through dark matter.
Going through dark matter.
And it's a sound that we can't hear the matter that we're made up of yet.
Exactly, yeah.
Unless maybe somehow we create something that can capture that.
It's an interesting question. If dark matter has some motion, does that help us have some new handle to detect it?
Can you imagine that? There's just Geordie LaForge banana clip eyepieces, and you can just like 3D glasses, just see dark matter.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You know, everyone... grandpas there as a ghost.
Yeah, oh, it was you guys all. Sorry about that. And so this was Tom Abel on Slack was one of the first people to do this, where they used astrophysical data to map out where the dark matter is, and they formed these filaments.
In gravitational lensing, side note, let's break it down, it's the way that mass bends a light source so that a shift in light is a clue that something with a lot of mass nearby is affecting it.
What the dark matter distribution looks like, they look like filaments. In fact, when I look at them, they look like neurons. They look like a network of neurons, where you have dark matter halos, and there are little filaments that connect them. We understand why they form this way.
Yeah.
But it's a really striking quote-unquote picture.
And we think that that is how they are forming and how they're existing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of a fundamentally huge way of visualizing it, right? Just to think that there's all these like spidery, kind of webby, filamenty things.
Yeah.
Are there any life advice you would have from someone who studies the universe and what we are and what it is? Is there any perspectives on life that you would want to share with your younger self or with others?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, do your homework.
Just that.
Do your homework. And I have thoughts. So when you're doing dark matter research, any type of research, anything, in fact, forget research, anything that you're doing in your life as an adult, there are no solutions in the back of the book. If you're doing anything exciting, you don't know if you're doing it right, and you have no feedback, and all you have is an intuition that you build up that you're going in the right direction. It's painfully true in dark matter research where you can say maybe dark matter is this type of particle, just be completely wrong. So I tell the first year physics students that I hate homework, I hated doing homework, I hate giving homework, I absolutely hate grading homework, but I give homework as a service to them because that's my commitment saying, there's something that you should do, and I know what the right answer is. I will help you get to the right answer. And if you get the wrong answer, that's great. We can work together and figure out what needs to be adjusted so that you have the right intuition to get to the right answer. And that's the critical thing. It's building that intuition of, I've gotten this wrong before, but now I am wiser because of having gotten something wrong. And that, I think, is a general life advice. And that's exactly how theoretical physics works, where a lot of the work that we do is conjecture, and we work it out, and then someone says, oh, but if you do it that way, the proton decays. Oh, yeah, dummy, okay. Now I know that this type of theory needs to have this type of tool. And I've built up a toolkit that I could only have had from making a mistake.
And that is something I feel like people who are outside of science in general are so afraid to fail. But there's so much failure
absolutely
in learning. Absolutely. We're only going to learn anything, right?
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to up a little.
Absolutely. And this is like the joke about the clever theorist, where when I die, if any of my research papers have any element of literally being true, I'd be ecstatic. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the speculative work is, I think this is the way things work. And even the ones where I get it completely right, the universe might just not be that way. Mm-hmm. But there's value in one, going through the process of being creative, and two, learning why the universe is not that way.
Mm-hmm. What about your favorite thing about what you do?
Oh gosh, I love that on any given day, there are new things to learn. And either it's some experimental result that I want to understand, or some related field where I never had the chance to take that class as a student, but I see that there's an opportunity where dark matter might be able to do something, and then I can dig into it and say, I have an excuse to spend my time reading this textbook, or reading this recent article, or talking to my colleague from a different department. That's the fun part.
It's just always learning and getting to get outside of that discipline.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I love that for the rest of my life, I'm going to be walking around thinking about a gram of dark matter in my coffee cup and sparkly webs and maybe ghosts.
Maybe ghosts.
Thanks to Allie Ward and her team chance to share her show with all of you. Hopefully you'll go check it out. You can find it wherever you get podcasts or at ologies.com. That's OLOGIES.com.
This episode was produced by Pat Walters with mixing help from Ariane Lack.
And I don't think there are any special thanks, so I'm just going to thank you. Thank you for listening.
Catch you then.
Hi, I'm Camille Nelson, your member relations specialist. If you are a monthly Always member and need to update your donation payment method, you can go online to houstonpublicmedia.org/update. Our easy online form will ensure that your information remains secure. Also, consider making the switch to EFT. You will help lower our processing cost, which puts more funding into the programming you love, trust, and rely on. Thank you.
Support comes from Comcast Business, partnering with companies to help keep their business moving by offering a network of cybersecurity solutions and round-the-clock support. Powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. ComcastBusiness.com.
This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. Get local news on demand anytime at houstonpublicmedia.org. Listen to us on your favorite devices. Tell your smart speaker to play Houston Public Media.
From Futuro Media and PRX, it's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. Today, Kamala Harris. We revisit my one-on-one interview with the VP, the presumptive presidential nominee for the Democratic Party.
Part of what is wrong right now with what is happening in our country is there is some perverse kind of suggestion that the strength of a leader is measured based on who you beat down instead of who you lift up.
Also on our show, another election update, this time from Venezuela. A conversation with journalist Roberto Deniz about corruption in Venezuela and its close ties to the United States.
There is a new hope for Venezuelan people that try to solve this long crisis in a democratic way.
All this coming up on Latino USA. Stay with us, no te vayas.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. The Middle East is bracing for a flare-up after Israel says a rocket from Lebanon struck a soccer field in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights yesterday, killing 12 children and young adults. Israel blames the militant group Hezbollah, which denies responsibility. It's raising fears of a broader regional war between Israel and Hezbollah. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf has more from Tel Aviv.
This certainly escalates those tensions, and this is the clearest rhetoric we've heard from the Israeli government about a possible war beginning. There's this feeling among lawmakers here that this attack was so serious that they have to respond. But it seems like Hezbollah and government officials in Lebanon are doing all that they can to walk it back, to deny the attack, and also to not go to war. You know, overnight, the Israeli military says it carried out several strikes deep in Lebanon. It's not totally unusual. The two sides have been firing back and forth almost daily for months now.
NPR's Kat Lonsdorf. The White House National Security Council says it's working on a diplomatic solution to end the attacks, quote, once and for all. The Kamala Harris campaign is criticizing Elon Musk after the billionaire shared a manipulated video of Harris on X. As NPR's Bobby Allen reports, critics say Musk appears to have violated his own platform's policies on so-called deepfakes.
Musk shared a fake political ad of Harris that mimics her voice, saying that President Biden is senile and that Harris is, quote, the ultimate diversity hire. Musk did not say it was a fake video, only writing it was, quote, amazing, followed by a laughing emoji. By resharing what seems to be an AI-generated deepfake of Harris, Musk appears to be violating X's policy against boosting manipulated media that can be misleading. One observer asked Musk if he plans to retroactively change the platform's rules to allow violations in an election year. Since Musk endorsed Trump for president, he's regularly shared pro-Trump content and misleading information to his nearly 200 million followers. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
Cooler weather has allowed firefighters battling the park fire in Northern California to make some progress in containing the blaze. The roughly 350,000-acre blaze is now about 12% contained. From member station KQED, Azul Dahlstrom-Ekman has more.
The park fire is now the state's largest wildfire of the year and the 7th largest ever. After igniting Wednesday near the town of Chico, it quickly spread at a rate of about 5,000 acres an hour. With cooler temperatures this weekend, firefighters made progress in containing the blaze. But Sarah Perdue with the National Weather Service, Sacramento, says the good weather won't last.
As we progress through the week, things will gradually start warming up back to slightly above normal, potentially reaching triple digits over the weekend.
Nearly 4,000 firefighters are battling the blaze. For NPR News, I'm Azul Dahlstrom-Ekman in San Francisco.
And you're listening to NPR News from Washington. An emotional day at the Summer Olympics as a French swimmer, Leon Marchand, captured a gold medal before a roaring crowd in Paris. U.S. swimmers also scored upset wins to boost America's medal count. NPR's Brian Mann has more.
Leon Marchand, who lives and trains in the U.S., emerged as a national hero for France during these games and won the 400-meter medley decisively.
Well, I had goosebumps on the podium.
Japan took silver, and in a surprise performance, American Carson Foster captured bronze in the race, which combines freestyle, back, breast, and butterfly.
You know, I've come up just short, haven't had good races in big moments, so tonight just felt good.
American Nick Fink scored another upset, tying legendary British swimmer Adam Peaty for silver in the 100-meter breaststroke.
There weren't many thoughts going through my head, just kind of go, go, go.
The biggest upset, American Tori Huss captured gold in the 100-meter fly, beating her U.S. teammate Gretchen Walsh, who took silver. Brian Mann, NPR News, Paris.
At the weekend box office, Marvel is back on top with Deadpool and Wolverine. The comic book movie made a staggering $205 million in its first weekend in North American theaters. That shatters the opening record for R-rated films previously held by the first Deadpool, which took in $132 million. In second place, Universal's standalone sequel to Twister, which took in $35 million this weekend. Universal also claimed third place with Despicable Me 4, which added $14 million in its fourth weekend. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness.
Tired of the racket and the rancor? Our imperfect union has a ways to go, but we won't know where we're going. We don't know where we're coming from. That's why we're here. Just because things are complicated, that doesn't mean we have to be confused. Join me, Jen White, for Daily Conversation for a Changing Country. Next time on 1A.
1A, weekdays at 11 a.m. on News 88.7.
Welcome to Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. Dear Latino USA listener, well, the last few weeks in U.S. politics have been quite a whirlwind, to say the least. From President Joe Biden's disappointing debate performance against Donald Trump in late June.
Right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party.
To the assassination attempt against former President Trump.
And new details tonight on the suspect here. Sources now telling ABC News that he looked up Donald Trump.
To the mounting calls asking for President Biden to step down as a candidate.
We've got up to 20 House Democrats now calling for the president to step aside. 2 out of 3 voters, according to a lot of polls, Democratic voters.
And then we reached a major flashpoint on Sunday afternoon of July 21st.
President Biden has just announced that he is ending his re-election bid. Just moments ago, the president tweeted out, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president." While it has been
now, a presidential candidate stepping out so close to an election is something that hasn't happened since 1968, when then President Lyndon B. Johnson said he would not seek re-election. President Biden has endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take his place at this November's presidential election.
We love Joe and Jill. We really do. They truly are like family to us. And we need everybody to know. I knew you were still there. You're not going anywhere, Joe. I'm watching you, kid. I'm watching you, kid. I love you. I love you, Joe.
At 59 years old, Harris has often called herself a child of the civil rights movement. And that's because she attended protests with her family when she was just a toddler. She's also known as the first of many. In 2004, she became the first woman district attorney in San Francisco and the first black person and first South Asian woman in all of California to hold that office. In 2010, Harris became the Attorney General for her home state of California, becoming the first woman in the state to do so. And when in 2017, Harris was sworn in as a United States Senator, she became the first South Asian person and only the second black woman to achieve that. In 2019, then Senator Harris competed to become the Democratic presidential nominee, but after a lackluster performance, she dropped out. Then, when Joe Biden became the nominee, he asked her to be his running mate, and the two won the 2020 election with the support of more than 81 million votes. Now, Vice President Harris is bound to make history again if she officially becomes the Democratic presidential nominee and ends up defeating Donald Trump. So we here at Latino USA decided to reach out to you, dear listeners, to hear what you had to say. And we got responses from Connecticut, Pennsylvania, California, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, and New York City. So let's take a listen to what you had to say.
I do feel relief in having Biden decide not to continue running for president, although I am extraordinarily worried about people inside his administration who concealed his cognitive issues. Not really a Kamala fan, but I do believe it's better than voting for Trump. I want to see if the patriarchy of the United States is actually going to finally vote for a woman.
I am very happy that Mr. Biden stepped away. My only trouble with Kamala is that she feels absolutely imposed by Biden. Yes, I am proud of her being a woman, but that is not enough. I need to hear, how are you different from Trump? What is the plan with the nation? I mean, I hope that Kamala, because she is an incredibly smart woman, shows us what a president should do.
As someone whose grandparents came to this country from Mexico, I'm very excited that Vice President Harris is now the candidate. You see in Mexico a woman that's president. Why can't that happen here in the U.S.?
As a woman from the island, as a mother of African-American children also, I am so proud of her, and this just gives me more enthusiasm to vote, and I tell my grandchildren who are at the age of voting that you must vote her in because she is a positive force for all people.
The fact that Kamala is a woman of color, she's a feminist, she believes in human rights for everyone. I'm gladly voting for her, donating and volunteering for her campaign.
I was planning on voting for Joe Biden. I wasn't super thrilled, but it was going against, Trump, and I just do not agree with anything that he has said and anything that he believes in. But after the election, I became very excited and what a Harris presidency could look like. She's just nothing like any other president we've seen before. All of the barriers that she's had to overcome, that story is also very inspiring and the nod to the American dream.
The nomination of Kamala Harris definitely makes me very happy, and I'm definitely going to vote for her. Before that, I was even hesitant to vote for Biden as a protest for his actions in Gaza, and I just feel excitement again.
Kamala Harris has an opportunity to really inspire our generation. It is yet to be seen if she will take a serious position and what her vision for our peace and security will be, starting with continuing to ignore and be complicit in abuses of power like we've seen overseas and like we continue to see at home by the same police and surveillance apparatus.
I'm happy that Biden is stepping down.
But my fears for this election haven't necessarily gone away, knowing Kamala has stepped in. It still kind of feels like I just have to vote to make sure Trump doesn't win. And I'm not necessarily voting for someone that I feel like represents me or will protect the communities I care about.
I feel excited about the election, and I wasn't feeling it before. She's invigorating, you know, you could just see the spark in her eye. I think it's a promising thing, and please God, please God, please God.
We want to thank all of you for taking the time to call in. Now, dear listener, wherever you might stand on your views of Vice President Kamala Harris as a potential candidate, we thought it was important to revisit my one-on-one interview with the VP. It's actually how we kicked off our ongoing political coverage, which we've called The Latino Factor, How We Vote. Last September, myself and Latino USA producer Reynaldo Leaños Jr. flew with the Vice President on Air Force Two from just outside of D.C. all the way to Miami. And there, I sat down with Harris at Florida International University, where we talked about everything from immigration to critiques about the Democratic Party to outreach for Latino voters and much more. But the one topic you won't hear us talking about is the war on Gaza. And that's because this interview took place just before the crisis erupted. So without any further ado, here's my 2023 conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris. Madam Vice President, thank you for speaking with us, sitting down with us.
It's my pleasure and honor. Thank you. I'm glad to be with you.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
So tell me about what you were feeling out there. Just give me a sense, because you're on this tour. Yeah. This is a predominantly Latino expedition. How'd you feel?
So this is my 6th stop on my tour, which we have named the Fight for Our Freedoms Tour. And one of the main reasons is because when I look at these young leaders, when I look at Gen Z, for example, they are stepping up. They are not waiting around for other people to create solutions. They are acutely aware of what is at stake. They are acutely aware of the clock ticking and the need for urgent action. And so I decided to embark on this tour as a way to, one, let them know that I see them, but also so I can hear from them. And I purposely decided to focus on college-age people. So it's universities and colleges, it's community colleges, and it's apprenticeship programs, trade schools. And so today, being here at an HSI, the largest Hispanic serving institution in the country, was just reinforcement of the importance of lifting up the voice of America's leadership currently and future leadership.
The topics the students brought up to the Vice President were wide-ranging. Here are a few of those questions.
With the election approaching upon us, we understand how important and how pivotal it is for our voices to be heard, for our votes to be casted. What strategies can we, the people, employ to empower and engage marginalized communities to ensure voting rights are respected and that our voices...
You mentioned earlier, there have been detrimental changes to reproductive rights, which in turn has caused a woman's right to abortion and a decision to make the choices about her own body go under attack.
According to the Brookings Institute, 31% of all Latino eligible voters are between the ages of 18 and 29. And these voters are more supportive towards progressive policies. That's something elected officials and aspiring 2024 candidates are talking about and taking notice. So, it's not all too surprising that the Biden-Harris administration is here today in Miami, trying to mobilize the vote. But will it work? When we come back, we get into what exactly the Biden-Harris administration is doing to foster the Latino vote in Republican-leaning Florida. And later, We're going to hear her thoughts on abortion, immigration, and more. Stay with us. No te vayas.
Maybe you start your day with the news on Morning Edition and catch up later with All Things Considered. Well, news doesn't wait. Stories evolve during the day, in courtrooms, financial markets, on the streets, and at kitchen tables, locally, nationally, around the world. Hi, it's Robin Young. Each weekday, check in with Here and Now for the news as it's happening. That's Here and Now from WPR and NPR News.
Here and Now, weekdays beginning at noon on News 88.7.
Some things in life are difficult, but making a difference in our community shouldn't be. Why not take your old or unused vehicle and donate it to Houston Public Media? Take something you're not using and turn it into something you can't get enough of. We'll handle the paperwork, provide free contactless pickup of your car, and issue you a tax receipt. If it's not in the best condition, don't worry about it. We'll take it. Call 877-252-0436 or donate online at houstonpublicmedia.org/vehicles.
This show is supported by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career you'll love with flexibility, great pay, and benefits, and one of the country's top workplaces? Come join our growing team. Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today.
Welcome back to Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa.
I'll find a new route.
When we left off, we heard Vice President Harris begin to talk about the administration's outreach to young voters across the country, especially Latinos and Latinas. It's part of the college tour that the Vice President designed. Let's go back to my conversation with the Vice President now. So when we were on the plane, you were very clear when I asked you about Latino and Latina voters, and you were like, yep, I know. And your answer was, they're the future, right? You were just
Indeed.
like that.
Yes.
So a lot of people are like, wait, what are you talking about? Latinos and Latinas, do they vote? Aren't they all immigrants? Aren't they takers? You know, this whole kind of very confusing narrative that is not true. But you were like, I see the future. And you're talking like data, but you're also talking heart.
I'm talking life experience. I mean, I'm a kid who was raised by parents who acted in the civil rights movement in California. I've grown up in the community.